thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm going to say good evening because that's where I am, but I recognize we might have individuals from a variety of areas. So again, thanks for joining us for learning a little bit more of advising at CWRU. Just to kick things off before we jump in, we'll do some introductions. So hi, everyone. I'm Jen DeSantis. I'm one of our Senior Associate Deans here in Undergraduate Advising Support and one of our four-year advisors. I've been fortunate enough to be here at Case Western Reserve University for over 10 years now, serving in a variety of support roles and providing resources. All of my time here on campus has been very student-facing, so engaging with our undergraduate students. And today I'm here to tell you more about our four-year advisors on campus, our roles and responsibilities.
Hello, everybody. I am Peter Schulman. I am Associate Provost for Curriculum, which is part of our Provost's office with responsibilities for all sorts of aspects of undergraduate curricular programs, new majors, new minors, new courses that relate to our undergraduate unified general education requirements, the Explore program, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and pre-major advising. I'm also an associate professor in our history department. I have been at CWRU for, I guess this is finishing 15 and a half years. I think that's where we are at this point. So I've been here for a little while and really delighted to be working with you this evening and soon to be working with your families.
Edwin, if you want to go ahead.
Yes, I'm Edwin Mays. I am Director of Family and Cohort Programs.
Well, in our time here together, we'll provide you with an introduction to advising here at CWRU. Our hope is to provide you with a better understanding of the advising partnerships that we have here on campus so that you can also share that and support your students in their journey. So we'll talk a little bit about the four-year advisors, pre-major faculty advisors, and a little bit about major advisors, but just really an introduction to that role on campus. While we have the time together, we also have a lot of great opportunities and connection points on our campus. So in addition to our roles that we have here, we will also provide some information on other resources available to students in really helping them to build kind of their network or success team for themselves on campus. So starting off here, we're talking about some of our advising partnerships. Again, we're going to focus on kind of the initial engagement. I'm not going to read through all of this information. This is more of a visual to really depict the partnership that we have because we'll talk more about these roles individually. But first, for students, when they're beginning their experience, they'll start working with that four-year advisor. They will have that four-year advisor for their duration of their time as an undergraduate student, working with them on a variety of items that, again, I will articulate. And then very early in their experience, too, they will also have that pre-major faculty advisor that will work with them when they arrive on campus. Peter will tell you more about that role and how we kind of work together. And then after that student declares their major, they'll have an academic advisor within that area of study. So there's a lot of transition here and a lot of support for students in a variety of areas as they get to know campus and get to know their goals on campus. So starting with my role here, our four-year advisors. So our four-year advisors serve as a resource for understanding policies, procedures, requirements behind kind of the academic programs, general education degree requirements, and a lot of those foundational major-related coursework. The way that I explain this for students is on campus, whether we mean to or not, we use a lot of, let's say, technical language or language that us at the institution are familiar with or in academia. The role of four-year advisors is really helping students understand that information so they can either make informed decisions about their academic journey and experience or opportunities that they have available to them. So a lot of times I'll explain something to students and they will say, what does this mean? My goal is to help them understand truly what it means to them and then present all of the options that they have available to them to make the choice that best fits them in their time on campus. We also support students to ensure a successful and enriching social and academic experience on campus. I will say this is an area of overlap with also a pre-major faculty advisor, a major advisor, and a lot of us on campus. We truly care about the success of our students and want to be there as a resource. So they might see this in their four-year advisors or many others with whom they interact on campus. Breaking this down even further into what does this mean for our students and their engagement with that four-year advisor? What does that plan look like for students? So students begin working with their four-year advisor very early in their experience. So a lot of them got their welcome to the roadmap and onboarding process in mid-October. That is also the same time that they received the introduction from their four-year advisor on campus. And then after that, all students completed at least one meeting with their four-year advisor to discuss their intended major or areas of interest and help develop that first semester schedule, talk about kind of their four-year plan and any related goals that they may have. I'll say some students will complete more than one meeting and a lot of email exchanges to answer questions or anything that might be unclear as they work through their roadmap, but all students are required to at least have that one meeting before they register for classes. And then after they register for classes, just to make sure that everything's set for the major that they're pursuing or any of the interests that they may have, we do a very intentional first semester schedule review for those students to make sure that they're set up for that successful first semester. And then upon arrival to campus, once they get here, we'll continue to work with them and help them explore majors and minors of interest that they have. We'll work with them in understanding those general education requirements again, really building the foundation. We want to be there to track their progress towards their degree, make sure they're taking the courses that they need to. But for us, it's also important to empower students to understand those requirements themselves so that we are co-creating that plan. It's not just us telling them what they should or need to take. We want them developing kind of their own four-year plan. We'll be there for all of that administrative support. So if they're adding courses, dropping courses, asking questions about pass, no pass, and course withdrawals. Again, a lot of those policies that we wouldn't expect them to know the ins and outs of in their experience, we're here to support that and continue working with them on that academic, personal, and social transition to college, making referrals as appropriate. Sometimes we're not the most appropriate point of contact to answer those questions, but we can get them to that next resource with all of the information that they need and help prepare some of the questions that they may want to ask when they get there. For the first semester, that means that they can anticipate us reaching out to them early on to check in, ask them to meet. From there, how often and when they meet with us really depends on the student. Some students want ongoing or regular check-ins. Some are good for a middle of the semester, end of the semester update, just to make sure that everything's as it needs to be. We really do leave that up to the students unless we hear any concerns that call us, to bring them in for more ongoing and regular meetings. For future semesters, we'll continue with a lot of those initial items that I mentioned in supporting students, making referrals. But if they haven't done so, we focus in a little bit more on that major declaration and getting them to their program of study and connecting to all of those resources within the department. We'll track their progress towards graduation. So we'll check in with them, but as they get close to the end of their experience, we'll do very nuanced and specific reminders to make sure that they're taking the degree requirements that they need to and be there to continue to support them. Should other questions pop up, like off-campus study, or a lot of students, and we really do encourage this, study abroad. There's some nuances with that process, and we want to make sure that students who are excited about that opportunity have all of the resources and information that they need to go ahead and study abroad. And then finally, fitting into those long-term goals as they get close to the end of their experience. We want students to meet all of the requirements that they need to, but also have a plan post CWRU and make sure that any of the steps that they need to take to meet those goals after their time with us, they have the ability to do that. We are not alone, though, in this endeavor and working with students, so I will actually go ahead and transition over to Peter.
Thank you, Jen. So I want to just talk for a few minutes about the pre-major advisor. The pre-major advisor is the other immediate advisor that your students are going to get when they come onto campus. And the pre-major advisors are faculty members in one of our undergraduate teaching units. We have the College of Arts and Sciences, we have the School of Engineering, the Weatherhead School of Management, the School of Nursing, and faculty from our School of Medicine in certain departments that focus on undergraduates. And we have faculty from all of those schools in the college who serve as pre-major advisors to new students in their first 1 or 2 semesters that they're on campus. So the pre-major advisor is the first faculty that many of these students are really going to have time to an opportunity to speak with and begin to develop a relationship with. And they are mentors who are going to help guide this transition, guide this, guide the students as they become members of our academic university community. And we work very closely with the four-year advisors. There are some of our roles that very much overlap, and students can get resources from either of us very easily. Some are things that fit more naturally with the four-year advisors, often very kind of technical things, university rules and regulations and exceptions and issues and things like that. And the pre-major advisors can give the perspective of a faculty member in thinking about potential academic programs that your students might want to pursue, whether it is potential majors that they're deciding between, or perhaps they may want to do more than one, looking at potential minors, potential career paths that they can take beginning while they're here and where they wind up after they graduate, and really kind of talk through their intellectual interests and where they want to explore in that way. Can move to the next slide here. Right, so in the first semester, beginning during what we call Discover Days, that initial orientation period in the second week of January, all of the students who are starting are going to meet with their pre-major advisors, get to know each other. The faculty member will review the courses that the student has selected, which has also already been looked at by the four-year advisors as well. Get to know the academic and kind of post-academic interests that the student may have, answer any questions. And I should say that the faculty members are selected based on the survey that Jen mentioned a few minutes ago. All of the students filled out the survey that indicated fields they might want to major in, other fields that they're interested in. Maybe it's for a major, maybe it's for a minor, maybe they just are interested in it, even if they know they're not going to pursue an official credential. They want to take a course here or there because it's interesting. So what my office does is match up students with faculty in all of those areas in an area of at least one of their interests. So they have something in common. So they have something that they can speak about. Sometimes this is someone in the field that they're sure they're going to major in. And often then the transition is pretty seamless. I actually have a student, pre-major advisee this current semester who decided to declare a history major. And he said, well, can you just keep being my advisor? And I said, yes, I can. So that was pretty easy. But I have other advisees who are looking at political science or international studies or other fields like that. And they'll eventually transition when they're ready. But the nice thing is, we as pre-major advisors can remain as what's called a designated advisor. We're still around, we're still available, we're regular faculty, we're typically here for long periods of time. And even after the students get their major advisors, we're still here to be mentors and resources for your students. So again, over the course of the semester, we're going to help look at potential majors and minors that students might want to pursue. Either we can answer questions directly, or we can, like the four-year advisors do, refer students right to the best resource. All of our programs have what are called academic representatives. These are faculty members who are in these programs, in these departments, and are deeply knowledgeable at every program. And we sometimes have very technical questions. What do you do as a junior? And I want to do study abroad. We can talk about options that the students might have. We'll meet, like I said, during Discover Days. We'll meet again at minimum midway through the semester as a check-in, see how things are going, check in with mid-semester grades, look at what your students are looking to do in the summer and further in the fall semester before they register for classes. But we may meet more. I have some students that I've met with, just like with the four-year advisors. I've met with some of my advisees many times over the course of the semester. Others, we've just corresponded by email more than our regular meetings. And some, they're just rolling along and barring issues, we give them the space to grow as they want to. We will also address challenges that students have, and this is often in communication with the four-year advisors. We want to make sure that they're up on what's going on. Sometimes they refer things to us. Sometimes we refer things to them. We like to work very closely together. In the future, we'll continue to meet in the fall semester up until whatever point your students declare their initial major. Now, that has to be done for them by about midway through the fall semester. They can do it earlier. They can do it by the end of the spring semester if they're totally ready. But know, and they should know, you can always change it. We want them to be grounded in a major within that first year, but know that they can always switch. If they decide that this is not the right choice, it's one form. It's super easy to move to another field if that fits for them. And again, the pre-major advisors are still here as resources and mentors. So yeah, we can move on to the next slide. Right. So just briefly on the major advisors, once a student declares a major, they get an advisor in that major. Those are the vast majority of the time faculty. There are a few programs where there are professional staff advisors who do that very excellent major advising. If your student declares a second major, they will get a second major advisor. Similarly, they'll get minor advisors. Any program they're attached to, they will have an academic advisor for that program. And these are faculty who are experts on that particular course of study. And that's one of the reasons we want to make sure that they are able to declare early, that they get the right advice, because some of our programs really require a lot of advanced planning to make sure that you take the right courses in the right order to graduate in the time that you want to graduate in.
And I'll just add for some of the major advisors, because we get conversations sometimes about like overlap too in the difference, because we still are there as the four-year advisors. But to Peter's point about some of the nuances, it is not uncommon for students. I'll be talking to them about their courses that they'll take next semester, but then they have very specific questions about what to expect in those courses. What are those courses like? How do these relate to the field? What are some of the course substitutions? Those are questions that are best directed to the major advisor, because they're going to have all of that information for their particular program. I might tell them the course and the pathway, but all of those details and nuances are going to come for the conversation with that major advisor.
Should I take it with this professor or that professor? The answer is it doesn't matter. They're all excellent. So
yes,
have to worry about it.
Exactly. I think too, for part of this conversation, like we mentioned, a little bit of overlap. I think the key takeaway is that we do all work together and communicate to support students. I've heard this from our University Health and Counseling Services, so I'm going to borrow it. The no wrong door. If you outreach me and it's really something that should be for your pre-major advisor, we're going to connect together. I'm going to help you connect with them. Or if it's for your major advisor, same conversation. I'm going to answer as much as I can, give you some guidance, and then connect you to your major advisor. We don't want students hesitant to reach out because they're not quite sure. They can engage with whomever they wish, and we'll kind of help them figure it out on the other side.
Can I address a question now that we have, rather than just let it sit? Someone asked in the Q&A about what if either the four-year advisor or the pre-major advisor isn't a good fit for the student, and what can be done. You don't have to apologize for the question. It's it does happen occasionally, not frequently. I can say over the course of this past semester with pre-major advising, I think we reassigned one student out of, I don't know, over 1,500. So it's not never, but it's pretty infrequent. If it seems like there's an issue, it depends on the nature of the issue. There's some things we always want to know about. Just your student can reach out to their four-year advisor if it's about the pre-major advisor or vice versa, and that will get the information to whoever needs to handle it, whether it's my office or over with Jen's office and undergraduate advising support. We want to make sure that students are having a positive experience. And if there's something that's souring that experience, we don't want that to be prolonged. It wouldn't be, though, just so it's clear, it wouldn't be about, I'm interested in a different subject. I thought I was interested in this when I filled out the form, but it turns out I'm not. Because the reality is the pre-major advisors are generalists. They're not there to, be guiding a student in a particular program yet. That's what the major advisors are for. And if they do need that more specific, discipline-specific advice, we'll make sure that either the four-year advisor or the pre-major advisor gets them to the academic representatives who can give them that information. But if there are issues, have them speak up. We'll be able to work it out.
And what we always have students do, and so I'll mention it not to dissuade them, is we'll always invite them in for a conversation. So not necessarily with their specific four-year advisor, but with a member of kind of our leadership team, just to hear more about what happened and some of their concerns. And that really does inform our next steps in our reassignment and finding somebody who maybe is a better fit to work with the student. I mentioned that again, it doesn't mean that it's a no, or we're not going to have, we just want to have a conversation with students when we hear those. And we do have, we'll share it at the end, a general email address for our office. That's always been a good place for students too. If they have those concerns, if they get it to our general email, their pre-major advisor or others, it'll get to one of us in leadership who can help work with that student. So talked a lot about, well, I'm biased and think our advisors on campus in all of the areas are fantastic. We have a lot of other resources on campus to support our students, and wanted to be able to take this opportunity to share more about those resources, but also other ways to connect with our campus and connect even to the local community in Cleveland, Ohio.
Right, so I'll pick up here. One of the things that I do as part of this position is run our Explore program. Now, Explore is a new component of our Unified General Education Requirements, our UGER. And the kernel of this idea goes back many years, during which we've developed this new set of general education requirements. And the idea is to really expose all of our new students to as many opportunities and resources and enriching opportunities that they can as early in their time here as possible. We've always encountered students who are about to graduate and just discover that Cleveland's actually an awesome city, and there are all sorts of wonderful things they can do here as they're about to leave. We would like to expose as many students as possible to the wonderful things on campus, off campus, as early in their time here as possible. So the basic structure of the program is that all first-year students will have to participate in, engage with, attend at least what we call 6 Explore events. These are one-off programs. They can be half an hour, they can be an hour. Some of the more special ones are a little bit longer. But they're a mix of these 3 categories we've listed here: academic programs, university resources, and cultural institutions and student activities. The academic programs are put on by our departments, right? The biology department hosts an open house, get to meet faculty, meet some current students, they have a lunch. That could be one of the academic programs. We could have our art history department doing a special faculty or grad student run tour of the Cleveland Museum of Art. We had the astronomy department do a special night at the stars with their telescope on the roof of the astronomy building. It's a way to get to know faculty in the programs, what kinds of things you would study. They could be lab tours, they could be field trips, they could just be meet and greets with faculty and students. But it's a way to get to know what these academic programs have to offer before you declare a major. University resources, these are all of the many offices on campus that deal with students and offer supports in one way or another. Many of them are in our student affairs division, which includes athletics, it includes disability resources. It includes health and counseling, all of which offer some kinds of programs to let students know what resources are available or skills they can develop. We've had programs from the library, many programs, very popular programs from the library, programs from our administrative offices, the campus police and public safety have been running extremely popular programs, which involve ride-alongs with campus police and tours of the infrastructure of our security systems. Those have been extremely popular and well attended. And the list goes on and on and on. We really want students to get to know what resources are here for them during their time here. And the final category, which is the ones that my office is particularly focused on putting together ourselves, has to do with what happens off campus. We are situated, as you probably know, right in University Circle. There are many fantastic institutions right on our doorstep: Cleveland Museum of Art, Western Reserve Historical Society, the Cleveland Botanical Gardens, the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, and many others. And if you go just a little bit further into Cleveland, still more institutions: Playhouse Square, all sorts of nonprofits, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and more and more and more, and then even more in broader Northeast Ohio. So the basic idea is we want students to do at least 6 of these programs in their first semester and a half that they're here, with at least 1 in each of those 3 categories. We have students who are doing a lot of these, which is great. We're really excited. I think at the end of the year, we're going to probably do some kind of award ceremony for the students who've racked up the most of these. These are free. These are ways to explore what they're interested in doing. Most recently, we've had some shows at Playhouse Square. We've had some concerts at the Cleveland Orchestra. And it's been a really great break. It's finals time. Students are towards the end of the semester. They're getting ready to go away. It's getting darker earlier. And to get to go for free and see these incredible performances is a real welcome break for a lot of our students. So there have been, I don't remember the latest number, over 300 programs just this semester. There'll be about the same number next semester. Students find the programs on this platform we use called Campus Groups, which schedules all sorts of programs across the campus. We are there, and we'll be sending them all information and making sure they know more about this when they come for orientation during Discover Days. But if you have a chance to mention it to them, please do. It's something I'm super excited about, and the students who've done it, which is all of them, have been really enthusiastic.
And picking up, and it's almost as if we knew some of the resources that were going to be highlighted. This is not an all-encompassing list of campus resources. I wanted to highlight a couple that just in doing previous information sessions with parents and families came up the most often for questions and kind of connection points for students. So first listed there is our Office of Disability Resources. So this is for students who are seeking formalized accommodations. If there were students who had maybe IEPs in high school or 504 plans and then are looking to transition to higher education and figure out what that looks like for accommodations and support. I highly encourage you to look at the information for disability resources. I encourage my students to, if you don't know if you're going to utilize that information, if you have the documented disability, doesn't hurt to register with their office. Get all of that information on file before you begin, and then you can choose if you want to move forward with implementing those accommodations. It is not listed on anything that a student is registered with disability resources. They do not disclose diagnosis or any of that information on campus. They merely provide letters of accommodation or memos to faculty members with the accommodations for their students. But again, do not disclose any of that information, nor is it listed anywhere on their record. We also have our University Health and Counseling Services, and I've shared their link. This is a common question of what should my student do if they are sick, they're away from home. It can be very difficult in their first semester. They can schedule an appointment with our University, again, Health and Counseling Services. They do a lot of same day, next day appointments, virtual visits for students. easy to connect, tremendous resource. They also have 24/7 counselor and nurse on call on their website for students who are seeking that information. And then our academic support resources for students. So all of our students are very high achieving, but maybe they want to take that B to an A or solidify the A in those courses, or even for students that might be struggling, we highly encourage them. This is where our peer tutoring resources are. So our one-to-one scheduled system, they offer peer tutoring appointments 7 days a week, typically from like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. in a variety of campus locations. We don't have a centralized tutoring center for students, which means you could see any two students studying together on campus and not know that it's a tutoring appointment because it takes place everywhere on campus. We also have what we call supplemental instruction, which is larger group facilitated study sessions for some of our larger introductory courses. So if your student is in a chemistry, a bio, a physics, a math course, those courses are going to be supported through supplemental instruction. And then they also do a lot of academic coaching and workshops through their office. I believe they also had some programs that they offered through Explore for our students, but all of their information is listed there on their website. So here's just 3 of those resources that I encourage you to bookmark and maybe be able to pull to as your student moves throughout their time on campus.
And if I could just also just jump in, I've taught a lot of students over the years. Our students are amazing. They come from high schools where they're typically at the very tops of their classes. And that adjustment to college can sometimes be a little shocking. Some students have been incredibly successful in high school without having to work as hard as they may need to work once they get here, especially in certain programs that are really, really challenging. We want students to use these resources. It is not a sign of weakness. It is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of success and growth, and taking advantage of what we offer, so they can build up those skills to make them successful the rest of their time here and beyond. So definitely want to encourage students to make use of these. That's why we have them.
And to quote some of our colleagues in that area, it's really a pride point for them. There really isn't stigma around seeking the academic support. It's just what successful students do throughout their time here on campus. In addition to those resources that we have on campus, as your students transition and join us here, there are a lot of individuals with whom they'll be connecting, and we kind of look at it as building their network, building their success team. So one of the first individuals, in addition to the professional staff members, the pre-major faculty advisors that they'll be engaging with, is going to be their orientation leaders. Their orientation leaders are upper class students who really will guide them through the Discover days on campus. They'll facilitate small group sessions, some reflection, help them manage that schedule. And they'll actually be available to continue that mentoring relationship with students beyond Discovery days as they transition to campus. If your student is living on campus, they're also going to have some members of our residence life team. So they're going to have that resident advisor, or what we call the RA, if they're ever talking about their RA. The RA is another member of their peer group. It's an upper class student that they can go to for some of those questions, getting to know the experience. They're going to come to their 4-year advisor, their pre-major advisor, with a lot of questions. But there are questions sometimes where the perspective of the peer group is going to be the most influential and helpful in their experience. So we want to make sure that they know that their RAs are there to support them. There are at times going to be items that are outside of the scope of the RA, or if they have roommate concerns or issues, and we hope that not to be the case. But should those issues arise, they also have their residential community directors, and those are additional professional staff members on campus who are there to support and work with students who reside within those residence halls. I'm going to plug, Peter had mentioned this, 2 faculty members, your professors. You're going to have the pre-major faculty advisor to help with that transition to campus, but they're also going to be engaged with faculty members in their classes. It can be a little bit, for some students I've worked with, difficult to approach, connect, have the conversations with faculty members in their first semester. Maybe there's some nerves there, but it's going to be a really important connection for them, not only in their first year, but throughout their experience. They might find themselves in, let's say, larger classes in their first semester. They might have some smaller classes, but in their larger lectures, we tell students often, go to office hours, connect with your faculty members in that smaller environment. You don't always have to have a canned question or item that you want to bring to that office hour. It's just the opportunity to connect with that professor, possibly get clarity on the material, but also just start building those relationships. Not to put Peter on the spot, but I've heard from some faculty members that they wish their office hours were more attended than they are.
Oh yeah, this is honestly, the internet has been terrible for office hours. Pre ubiquity of email, office hours were generally well attended across academia, and now that it's just more routine to reach out with an email with a question, students don't show up as often as they used to, and that connection is really helpful because it's not just about answering the question, it's about, like Jen said, building the relationship. So all faculty have office hours. If they're teaching a class, they have to have office hours, and of course are often available to meet at a scheduled time if that can't work for some reason. So yeah, students very much encouraged to go.
And then we mentioned this from some of the orientation leaders or RAs, but the peer group, other students on campus, we want them building those connections, building a community here at Case Western Reserve University. They'll have opportunities to do that throughout the Discover Days, into their first semester through a lot of the Explore activities. But again, we want them to have that sense of community, that sense of belonging on campus. And a lot of that comes from connecting with their peers. And then part of today's presentation is providing you with some context for the resources that are available to students so that if they have questions or concerns, you may be their first go-to, and you now have maybe a little bit of information to help guide them to, have you reached out to your four-year advisor? Did you connect with your pre-major advisor to give them some of those tools to empower your students to take the next step in their experience, but have that little bit of information to nudge them along the way?
And I'd just add, one thing we hope is that over time, all of our students get more and more confident and capable to figure out how to solve their problems, how to figure out who to go to. We want to make that as easy as possible at the beginning. If you're not sure who to go to your four-year advisor or ask your pre-major advisor. We'll make sure you get the right answer. Over time, they're going to be able to figure out how to do these things on their own, because once they leave here, we want to make sure that they're successful in everything else they do.
Well, thank you. I had mentioned a general email for our team, ugadvisingsupport@case.edu. But we'll hang around. We thank you for joining us this evening. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat.